The age of streaming is something that should be incredible. Every film, every series, all at your fingertips. But I found that most times I end up on a streaming service, I end up watching nothing. I scroll for 40 minutes trying to find the perfect option, something that'll satisfy the exact thing that I'm looking for, and my brain just freezes. In the business world, they call it decision paralysis. Too many options. The fear of making the wrong choice, and you end up choosing nothing. So let me make tonight's decision for you. The film, Cure, 1997, directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. And no, not that Kurosawa. No relation to Akira, at least from my understanding. A very different kind of filmmaker, and we'll get to him. It's a psychological horror film, and I think it's the perfect entry into Japanese horror. If you are to take one thing from this video, take this sign to watch this film. Here's the setup, and I promise no spoilers, because the whole point of this video is to get you to watch the film. There's a series of murders across Tokyo. Every victim has the same X carved into their throat. Every killer is caught near the scene. An ordinary person, no record, no motive, and no way to explain why they did it. And none of the killers know each other. Detective Takabe is stuck solving a case where the who is never in question and the why feels impossible. And Takabe is getting it from both ends. At work, a case that breaks every rule of logic he has. At home, his wife's illness is quietly eating whatever life he has outside. She forgets things, she wanders, and he's the only one holding her together, also while he's trying to hold the case together. You can see the cost of it in his face before anyone says a word. Keep that in mind, we'll get back to that. That's all I'm giving you for the story. I really think that's all you need. So full disclosure, I'm not a Japanese horror expert. This is coming from the exact opposite. I wanted to really get into Japanese horror for years. I knew a lot of the names that a lot of cinema fans would talk about, like Ringu, Ju-on. I knew the reputation, slow, quiet, dread that doesn't resolve itself. It all sounded great, but I never really committed because it's really daunting to start a whole new canon from zero. You don't really know where to start. Cure was my entry point. I put it on, and for the first hour, it felt like it was something I already knew. It plays like Seven. A procedural, a wary detective, a case that keeps getting darker, and then somewhere in the middle, it stops behaving like Seven, and I realized I was watching something that I really didn't have any map for. It can be really daunting to watch something so new in the face of thousands of options, but when it sneaks up on you, it can be such a thrilling experience. After the film, I went looking for interviews and forums and such, and it turns out that blend is on purpose. Kurosawa told IGN, "Cure is indeed a psycho thriller and a detective story, and I borrowed these genre styles from the American conventions." But he also names one convention he refused to keep. In American detective stories, the detective solves the mystery without ever changing as a person. He says, "When I make films, and perhaps this is because I am Japanese, my characters have to change." That was my exact experience watching this film, described by the director. You start on familiar ground, then the ground moves. And remember what I said about Takabe getting it from both ends? That quote is pointing straight at him. This isn't a story about whether he solves the case, it's a story about what the case does to him. Quick detour, because if this film is your starting point, the filmmaker Kurosawa becomes really the rest of the map. Kurosawa didn't come out of nowhere. Before Cure, he spent years grinding through Japan's direct-to-video industry, shooting fast and cheap, crime thrillers, and whatever the market wanted. And you can feel that apprenticeship all over Cure. It has the confidence of a director that made a lot of films that nobody was watching, and he used them to figure his craft out so that by the time someone was watching, he was a master at work. Cure was that moment. It put him on the international map, and he did it a year before Ringo kicked off the whole Japanese horror boom. And he didn't stop. If Cure worked for you, Pulse is next. His 2001 film about ghosts and the internet that apparently people say is one of the scariest films ever made. He's more than a horror director. Tokyo Sonata is a straight-up family drama. He's still working today. And that's what makes Cure such a good door, is it doesn't just open the genre, it opens a whole filmography. Without spoiling anything, the villain in the film belongs in the same conversation as Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Less a character, more a force. Something that feels like pure evil walked into a police procedural. This film really did scratch the itch that I was looking for from Long Legs. Early in the film, you meet the antagonist, a young drifter that doesn't seem to remember who he is, where he is, or how he got there. He doesn't answer questions, he returns them. Who are you? From anyone else, that's small talk. But from him, it starts to feel like a weapon, and you can't really explain why. You've seen hundreds of scenes where a detective sits across a suspect, Seven has them, Silence of the Lambs turned them into an art form. Cure takes that exact setup and quietly reverses it. In the American convention, the detective is pulling something out of a suspect. Here, the conversation feels like the suspect is pulling something out of the detective. You keep waiting for Takabe to score a point, and you slowly realize the scenes were never keeping score. Not the way you thought they were. The film never spoon-feeds you anything. You can finish it having felt the horror without fully understanding it, and that's completely valid. But the ending recontextualizes the film, so you'll want to go back and watch it again. And then you'll want to talk to someone about it. It's a film that really does make you want to enter the forums on Reddit and start talking to other cinema fans about it. There's 3 things about the filmmaking, and this is where I put my filmmaker hat on a little bit. First, American horror does a lot of like pushing in cuts, coverage, close-ups, cutting on jump scares, music stings that tell you what happened. Kurosawa does none of that. He shoots in long, wide, static takes and keeps his camera at a distance even when something terrible is happening in the frame, especially then. Violence in the film happened matter-of-factly, far away or just off-screen. No sting, no cut for impact. Your first instinct is that this should make it less scary, but it actually makes it worse, because the film refuses to flinch for you. And inside those wide frames, the darkness. Oh my god, the darkness. Kurosawa lets the room stay dark, like really dark. Characters half dissolve into the shadow. He'll hold on a shot long enough that you stop watching the actors and you start watching the black doorways in the back. Or you'll start looking at the light and you'll start to think that there's things in the background, and the film really does refuse to confirm if there is or isn't anything there. The light isn't just mood, and what you can or can't see is the camera doing story work. Second, and no one really warned me about this, is the sound. There's barely any score. The film runs on room tone, humming machines, dripping water, the low drone of buildings, and here's why that matters. You see, a score is instructions. It tells the audience when to feel scared, and just as important, when you're safe. Cure never gives you the all clear, so you sit in this low dread for 2 hours and you can't point out why. Some of the best sound design I've ever come across in horror. And the third is something that I probably took the most from, is the editing. And the editing does this way of highlighting things the characters are experiencing, feeling, dreading over. The way the film uses editing to disorient you or incite fear. Techniques that feel fresh and brilliant, that felt effective and also efficient in putting the viewer inside Takabe's head. And I can imagine myself trying those cutting techniques in my own films. What finally pushed me through the door was writing a horror film of my own. I figured if I'm going to try to write one, I should stop avoiding the films that scare people the most. And the lesson Cure taught me is subtraction. No score, no light, no explanation, and in story terms, it's removing the freedom of choice for characters. Every scary thing this film does, it does by removing something a normal film would give. The scariest scenes in it are 2 people talking in an ordinary room, because you start to feel like one of the characters has no power, has no choice, even if he feels like he does. So now when I'm working on my own script, the question I keep asking isn't what I can do to make this scarier, it's what I can take away. The next film for me is Kurosawa's Pulse, which people insist is even scarier, and we'll see. So tonight, when you open the app and the scroll paralysis kicks in, your decision's already made. Cure. Go watch it, then come back and tell me what you thought in the comments. And if you end up watching something else, let me know what that film was. See you guys later. Peace.